Hi guys, welcome back. This is Philip again. Again, that's my hand drawing the picture you see in front of you. And today we're doing one of my favorite characters, Spider-Man. Right now you're looking at the preview. That's a little taste of what you're going to get as the picture goes along. Pretty soon it'll switch over. It'll just be me on a blank page starting from scratch. This particular image comes from inside the famous Superman versus Spider-Man comic book, published in 1976 by Marvel and DC. It was the first major intercompany crossover between the two biggest superhero comic publishers at the time. And I had another character actually planned to draw today, but I was flipping through some of my books and came across this particular image and was struck by just how gorgeous it is, and for a variety of reasons, I thought let's try drawing that today. So you hear me at the stage of blocking out the image to make sure everything's where it's supposed to be. This is a really important part of drawing, which we'll find out in a second, because right now, as the paper is positioned, the perspective on everything looks about right. When I flip it this way, though, I realize, oh, heck, look how small Spider-Man's chest is. And then as I keep trying to fix the proportions, I keep having to go further and further and further out until I eventually start having to erase bits. Same thing happened with his leg. I think what it actually was I was afraid of the edge of that paper. I was afraid I was going to go off, so I was kind of choking up on the bat a little bit. But once I flipped the image, I could see how off my perspective was, and it gave me a chance to correct it, which is why you always want to do this sort of blocking, planning, rough drafting stage before you start laying down pens and pencils. I didn't realize until drawing this just how much Dr. Octopus's bowl haircut looked like a pumpkin. It's very appropriate for Halloween season. Right now it's October 2nd. We're officially entering spooky season. And I guess Green Goblin would be a better Halloween villain, but I know he gets credit as being Spider-Man's biggest enemy, but for me it's Dr. Octopus. You can't beat that character design, and something about the 8 arms on both of them, the spider and the octopus, make them more of a match. To me, if you know anything about Dr. Octopus, he's a great sort of what if Peter had gotten powers later in life kind of character. Peter was a shy, nerdy science geek. That's me showing off the size of the pen I'm using. But he gets his powers as a teenager when he's still sort of hopeful and optimistic and becomes a hero. And then Dr. Octopus is a Peter who grew old and hateful, and when he got his powers, he decided to take it out on everyone around him. It makes them a really perfect mirror image to each other. So Dr. Octopus will always trump Green Goblin as Spider-Man's number one villain. Gotten to the point now where I'm busting out the pens and putting the lines down. The only thing about this image that bums me out is I feel like I kind of choked up on the bat a little bit with the arms. I could have put a little more fluidity in those. The lines are a little stubbier, a little more less trust in the pen. I think, what is the famous saying? It's a poor craftsman who blames his tools. So it's not the pen's fault. It's just I didn't trust myself with the pen to make good motions on those wide tentacle arms of Dr. Octopus's. Putting on hands now. There's some really good videos out there on YouTube to tell you how to draw hands. My particular favorite is a YouTuber. She went by the name Learning Comics with Pancake. That was her name. So look her up. She was instrumental in kind of getting me back into my desire to draw comics. I grew up reading and drawing with the goal of wanting to be a comic book artist when I was a kid. And then you get older and, you start getting real jobs and your childhood fantasies kind of fall by the wayside. And coming on YouTube the last few years, I've been watching videos on how to draw and comic book creation, and it's really lit a fire under me to want to go back and get better at this thing I used to love. But what that means is what you're looking at now is essentially the skills I acquired from the ages of 2 to about 20. Never didn't improve that much more. This is basically as good as I was at the age of 20. I'm currently 40. The only thing I will say that's better is, to tie it back into the first thing we were talking about, having watched videos by famous comic book artists like David Finch and Ryan Benjamin, they explain the importance of creating those blocking, using the circles and cones and everything. You can even see on that fist there, I use a cube to help me delineate the shape of the fist. Basically, I would say if I could critique my 20-year-old self, he was all style, no substance. He didn't have the under construction down right. He knew how to draw muscles and everything. And having watched these YouTube videos that explain, how to start, I've been able to take that and add more structure to my drawings. I can layer all that style on top of a proper wire framework of the drawing. And so now you're seeing me put flat colors down on the page. If you watch me draw Superman in the last episode, you'll note that I felt like the colors kind of got away from me, so I'm a little less adventurous on today's drawing. Going to put down some flat colors, and then when we get towards the end, I'll come back and add more color to give a little bit of depth and roundness to the drawing. Also, note that I put down the color before I put down the webs, because again, having drawn Spider-Man as a kid, I learned that if you draw the webs first and then put the red on top of it, it smears the web or it drowns it out. So it's better to lay the ink down on top of the color. It's actually a pretty good rule for most things. I'm literally discovering this as I say it out loud. I should try coloring first and then adding all those black lines on top of the colored pencils. I think it would make them pop a little more. Right now you got nice little flat colors, nice little coloring book you can watch me do. I'm leaving a bit of white on Octopus's boots to give them a little bit of sheen. Something I always think about is what the material is that you're coloring. Spider-Man's outfit and the clothes on Dr. Octopus's back are made out of cloth, so they don't reflect light as sharply as, say, his leather or orange pleather boots would. So I'm putting a little more light on those. This is going to be the same technique I use when I'm coloring in his tentacles later, because they're made of metal. They reflect light differently than cloth or skin would. A lot of the coloring you'll see me do in some of my earlier videos is, again, things I learned in high school, mainly looking at Dragon Ball Z drawings and the way you can kind of shade a character using different colors, neighboring colors on a piece of cloth or on skin to make the image pop and give it a little more of a three-dimensional aspect to it. Right now I'm adding just extra. I'm putting the lines on Dr. Octopus's arms. And again, you can see how kind of ragged the black outline is of those. It really takes away the fluidity of the image. The original image is something to see. It's drawn by Ross Andrew, famous Spider-Man artist from the 70s. It looks really, really good. And it's literally just one of like 4 or 5 panels on that page. I'll show it to you when we get to the end of the video. It's just a throwaway. It's not even like a giant... The remarkable thing about it is this image is good enough to be like a double-page splash page. You take up a whole section of real estate in a comic, but it literally is just the middle third of a page. It's just an image of these two guys scrapping, and it's so good, and it's just like... That's how good these guys were. It's essentially just a throwaway image, but it looks as good as a poster would today. And putting down the spider, I think I got a little fat on that spider, unfortunately. And you can see me now adding ink on top of the color to create a bit of gradation. I'm kind of using the same color theory I was using on Superman yesterday, where I didn't put any black on Superman's cape to make it more luminous, and his image on his chest, I don't put any rendering on it. I leave it as a standalone icon, kind of regardless of what the reality of how that thing would bend and stretch. I do a similar thing with Spider-Man here. I don't put a whole lot of black on the red, except around the neck and head to kind of break up the image and help illustrate where the neck and shoulders and everything are separate. The web density is, again, something that's up to each individual artist. The way to draw Spider-Man's webs on his suit is imagine a giant spider web falling from the sky, and the center of the web lands between his eyes and then wraps down his head, down his neck, down his chest and arms. So depending on your art style, you can have the lines of the web be really, really dense, like a plate of spaghetti, or you could have them like I have here, very, very designed and very far apart. I like the far apartness of them. Maybe it makes them look like the Spider-Man cartoon shows I watched as a kid. If you watch here on this foot, these two legs, I am going to have the webs down, straight up, and then as I get down, it creates, again, gives a bit of perspective. It makes it look like his leg is bending in the direction. And we're getting about finished here with the overall image. I'm going to go back now and add some more color to really give some depth, kind of shade with the colored pencil. Put a little bit of, there you go, kind of helps it stand out a little bit, I think. I managed to avoid the mistake I made in my last couple of videos of going back at the very end of the drawing and adding a ton of black ink to kind of fix any mistakes or rendering issues. So this image really stands out to me. It's much more colorful than my last couple of videos. And we're just going back and adding in a little bit of shading on the skin and what have you. But I'm really happy with how this turned out. This is my favorite video so far, and my favorite image. I literally might tear this out of the sketchbook and buy a frame and hang it up. I like it that much. It's a good departure from my last couple of videos where it's just a single guy doing a single thing. My last few videos, the two first videos I made, I just copied somebody else's drawing of an individual guy. The Submariner and Batman, respectively. The last two videos I did, I got a little more complicated. I took a toy of Iron Man and made it a two-dimensional drawing, and then same with Superman. There was a image of Superman that was basically silhouetted, and I made it a separate picture with more detail, making it an original drawing. This, I kind of went back to the well of just drawing a master's drawing, but I kind of up the ante for myself by making it two guys in a very complex dance with each other. But thanks again for watching. Like and subscribe. And here's the reference where the picture originally came from. Have a great day, guys.